right, welcome. Okay, so this lesson is your review for the test, and it's going to help you quite a bit if you understand it. So if you don't understand it, it's important that you re-watch this video on Canvas, or that you make sure that you ask questions or get help from a teacher like me, or come in during Shield, or before school or after school, before the test. Okay, so here we go. Question number 1. Well, I guess I could start from the beginning. Plane geometry and similarity unit tests or unit study guide. Like I said, this will help you on your test, and your test will be very similar to this. Solve each of the problems below. These represent the types of questions on your test. Be sure to ask questions if you need more help with the topic. So the first I can statement is I can use formulas to find the circumference of a circle. I plan on leaving the equations that you're going to need. I plan on leaving them up during the test, but it's also good to know off of the top of your head. So question number 1, what is the circumference of the circle below? So you need to be able to know that equation, and that equation is the circumference is equal to the diameter times pi. There's 2 different equations that you could use, and I'll show you both. Well, later on. Okay, so I'm going to plug in what I do know. It says, what's the circumference? Well, I do know that the diameter is 11, so I'm just going to plug in 11 for the diameter, and then I'm just going to put pi right there because it's part of the equation. And all you have to do is, in your calculator, type in 11 times pi. And I'm getting 34.5 centimeters. And because it's asking us for the circumference, you do not have to solve, you don't have to put squared at the top of your answer. That's only if it's asking for area. If you do not have a calculator, I suggest you get a calculator so that way you can follow along with this. Question number 2 says, the circumference of the circle below is 28.26 centimeters. What's the radius? Well, we do have an equation that we can use with circumference. We might just have to solve it a little bit differently. So let's use that equation that we need. If you would like, you could use circumference is equal to 2 pi times the radius. Or you could use circumference is equal to the diameter times pi. And just know that you have to cut your diameter in half. Okay, so the circumference of the circle below is 28.26 centimeters. Well, I'm going to plug that in for circumference. So 28.26 is equal to, let's see, I'm just going to use the equation that I normally use. The diameter times pi. All right, now we need to get the diameter all by itself. So we need to get rid of pi. Pi is the same thing as 3.14. So if you wanted to write this out, you could say 28.26 is equal to the diameter times 3.14, and just know that we have to get the diameter by itself. So I'm going to divide by 3.14 or divide by pi on both sides. And let's see what I get. I'm going to type into my calculator 28.26 divided by pi, and I got 8.99 is equal to the diameter. So the diameter equals 8.99. Well, that's the diameter, and like we talked about in class earlier, the diameter spans the entire length of the circle. They're only asking us for the radius, and so we are going to have to divide our diameter by 2. So 8.99 divided by 2 gives me 4.49. That means my radius is equal to 4.49 centimeters. You could round it up if you would like to, and so you could say the radius is equal to 4.5. Just like how 49 cents is really close to 50 cents, it's kind of the same thing, right? 4.5 centimeters. And I'm going to show you another way in case you like to use the other equation. All right, so the other equation is made for when you're only given the radius, and the question is asking us to find the radius. So the question was, the equation that we are going to use, this is the other equation in case you like this one. What's the radius? Well, let's plug in what we do know. The circumference is equal to 2 pi times the radius. So my circumference, they already gave us that. It's 28.26 is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. Well, I don't know what the radius is, but I could do the math. 2 times pi, or 2 times 3.14. So let's go ahead and rewrite our entire equation, what we do know so far. 2 times 3.14 is giving me 6.28. And then I'm going to include my r there because I haven't done anything with it. And now I need to get rid of 6.28. It's being multiplied to the r. So we're going to do the opposite of multiply to get rid of it. 6.28 cancels out. That's really good. Now we have r all by itself, so I'm going to type into my calculator 28.26 divided by 6.28, and I get 4.5. r equals 4.5. And that one just gave me the radius because our equation was having us solve for the radius. So it just kind of comes down to your preference, which equation you want to use, and they're both great options. It's just up to you. All right, question number 3. A little girl stands on a carousel and rotates around the ride 6 times. Now a carousel is in the shape of a circle. Obviously, this is a perfect circle. If the distance between the little girl and the center of the carousel is 8 feet, look how perfect that is. See, I went to school to be an art major. Yeah, just pretend that I just drew that to the center of the circle. Okay, so our radius is 8 feet. How many feet did the little girl travel? All right, so that means, let's talk about this really quick. What is the outside of the circle? Well, that is the circumference. So we are solving for the circumference. And that is equal to, you could use this equation, the diameter times pi, or you could use the circumference is equal to 2 pi times the radius. Well, this equation right here might be a little bit nicer to you because you already know what the radius is, so you can just plug it in. Let's go ahead and try. Circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius of 8. And let's go ahead and just plug that into our calculator. I'm going to say 2 times pi times 8, and I got 50.26. The circumference is equal to 50.26. Now, if you wanted to use the other equation, I'm going to show you really quickly how you can do that. The circumference is equal to the diameter times pi. Well, we don't have the diameter, but what we do have is the radius. The diameter would just be double. So what's double 8? That's 16, so we could say 16 times pi. And let's go ahead and type that in. 16 times pi gives me 50.26. Notice I got the same answer for both. But my question is asking me, how many feet did the little girl travel? Now remember in the question it says she rotates around the ride 6 times. So our answer, we just have to multiply it by 6 because she's going around the circle 6 times. So let's go ahead and do that. 50.26 times 6 gives me 301.59. And that's going to be in feet because the radius was in feet. And you do not have to square your answer because it's only asking you for the circumference, not the area. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at my key. It looks like my key, I got 301.44, which is just a little bit different. Let me try typing something in real quick. .26 times 6. All right, close enough. We'll count it. Okay, next question. I can use formulas to find the area of a circle. Now, area of a circle is equal to pi times the radius squared. Well, what's our radius right here? If the radius only goes halfway, what's half of 12? 6. So let's plug 6 in for radius. and that's all you're going to do. Pi times 6 squared, that's going to give you the area of a circle. So I'm going to plug it in. Pi times 6 squared equals 100. Area equals 113.09. And that's going to be feet squared. Let me highlight that. You have to remember to square your answer. All right, next question. Question number 5 says a cell phone tower picks up signals within a 25-mile radius. Okay, we know a radius is part of a circle. A radius is only halfway to the circle. It says here it's 25 miles. How many square miles of coverage does the cell phone tower provide? Coverage, that means they're talking about all of this. How many miles of coverage does that cell phone tower provide? Well, area of a circle is equal to pi times the radius squared. So let's go ahead and plug in our values. Pi times the radius, well, our radius is 25. And then let's square our answer and plug it into your calculator. Pi times 25 squared equals 196.34, and our answer is going to be, whoops, I put my decimal in the wrong place. That could have been bad. I would have got that wrong. 1963.49. Okay, that's a lot bigger of a number. And it's going to be miles because our radius was in miles. And you have to make sure that you square your answer because they're asking us to find the area. All right, question number 6. The area of the circle below is 28.26 feet. What's the diameter? They're giving us this entire coverage right here, the whole area, and they said it's 28.26 feet. Well, area is equal to pi times our radius squared. We don't know the radius, but what we do know is the area. So let's plug that into our equation. 28.26 equals pi times the radius squared. This is where things get a little bit tricky. The first step, we're going to have to get rid of pi because eventually we want to get r all by itself. So let's get rid of pi by dividing by pi. Or you could divide by 3.14 if you like that better. So I'm just going to type this into my calculator. 28.26 divided by pi gives me 8.99 is equal to my radius squared. What on earth is going on here? Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky, and we haven't stressed this too much in class. We haven't really had to solve for just the radius when given the area before. I think once, and I breezed over it really quick. Now, how you solve for r, we only want r, but it's being squared. The opposite of squaring something is to take the square root. So we have to take the square root on both sides. And what that does is it cancels out the 2 and it cancels out the square root, and you're just left with r is equal to, and then now we need to do the square root of 8.99. And that's giving me 2.99. So what exactly does that mean? Well, let me think really quickly. My key is showing me a different answer. Oh, okay, so that's the radius. I see why. Let's highlight in a different color. It's saying what's the diameter. So if our radius is only halfway of the circle and our radius is 2.99, how much will we need to cover the entire circle for our diameter? Well, we'll just need to double our answer, so let's times it by 2. 2.99 times 2, that's the same thing as almost 3, right? 2.99 is basically 3, and 3 times 2 will give you 6. When I typed in 2.99 times 2, I got 5.99, and that's going to be my diameter, not my radius, because I've now doubled my radius, which is the same thing as your diameter. So I would accept the answer of 5.99, or I would accept the answer of 6. And your answer is going to be in feet, because our area was in feet to begin with. And like I said earlier, if this is going a little bit too fast for you, watch it again. Go over the problems that you didn't get, just skip right to them, because you will have problems like this on the test, especially one kind of like this, where you're going to have to solve for just the radius when given the area and probably be taking the square root. Okay, so question number 13. I can solve problems involving scale drawings. Now you might be wondering how come we're jumping around with the numbers in here, and that's because we cut some questions out of your review, so you have less problems to do, so that's why they jump around quite a bit. All right, so I can solve problems involving scale drawings. The photo below is being enlarged to form a 24 by 30 inch print. What's the scale factor being used to enlarge it? Well, let's pretend this is our larger picture right here, and it's saying 24 inches by 30 inches. Well, what is our scale drawing? You could think, what do I multiply by to go from 5 to 30? What do I multiply by to go from 4 to 24? You multiply by 6 each time, and so your scale factor is 6. Just 6, that's it. You don't have to write inches, you don't have to write anything else. The scale factor is just 6. All right, let's move on to question number 14. Shelby drew a map of the Appalachian Trail. The scale was 5 centimeters, represents 400 kilometers. The map shows the Appalachian Trail to be 43.75 centimeters. What's the actual length of the Appalachian Trail? Well, what we can do is set up proportions. I know here that I'm originally given, our scale is 5 centimeters, and the trail is going to be 43.75 centimeters. Well, because this is proportional, I know that I can set up centimeters being equal to centimeters. And what they're asking us to find is what's the actual length of the Appalachian Trail? Well, it's going to be in kilometers. Let me highlight another thing on here. So the scale was 5 centimeters and it represents 400 kilometers. And they want to know what the actual length of the trail is. Well, when we have 400 kilometers being equal in a scale to 5 centimeters, we're going to have to figure out what our value is going to be if our actual centimeters are 43.75. And now that we have this set up in a proportion, we can go ahead and solve it just like that trick that we like to do. And I know that there are so many of you who solve it in other ways, and you're welcome to do whatever way works for you. Like we've talked about many, many times, there are so many ways that you could solve this type of problem. I'm just going to show you the way that most of my students like to solve it. So I'm going to say 43.75 times 400 divided by 5. That will give us our answer. So 43.75 times 400 divided by 5, and I just barely got my answer of 3,500. Now my answer is going to be in kilometers, because kilometers have to be equal to kilometers. So that's my answer. Now you could double check all of this by dividing your top number by your bottom on both sides, and you should get the same decimal. For example, if I did 400 divided by 5, I get 80 when I do that math right there. And because this is proportional, my new answer that goes up here on the top, if I divide my answer by the denominator, so if I do 3,500 divided by 43.75, I get 80. And is 80 equal to 80? Yes, it is. So we know that we did our math right. But still, my answer is 3,500 kilometers. All right, let's move on to the next question. Sorry, my page is loading, so I'm going to have to check my smartboard really quick. There we go. All right, question number 15. So triangle ABC is shown. Its original lengths are multiplied by 150. What's the new perimeter of triangle ABC? So let's draw our new triangle. We're going to be making a newer, bigger, better triangle, and these are what the angles are called. We talked about this briefly, that when you create a new shape, you go ahead and you call them by this name up here. We just put a little apostrophe up above to show that it's the brand new reflected image. Okay, so the question is, they're taking your original length of 29 and 21, and you're going to multiply it by 150%. Well, let's talk about percents real quick. 150% in a decimal form, you just move your decimal 2 places over, so that's equal to 1.5 in my calculator. So that means I'm going to just take all of my side lengths and I'm just going to multiply them by 1.5. So let's go ahead and try that. Follow along with me on your calculator. 20 times 1.5 equals 30 centimeters. 21 times 1.5 equals 31.5 centimeters. And 9 times 1.5 equals 13.5 centimeters. So now all of our new side lengths over here they are 150% bigger than the other lengths that there were before. But the question is asking us, what's the new perimeter? So that means we have to add up all of these angles together. Side lengths together. So 30 plus 31.5 plus 13.5 equals 75. 75 centimeters is my new perimeter. And you do not have to square your answer because they are only asking for the perimeter, not the area. All right, question 16 says the map below is being reduced by a scale factor of 2/3 and printed at the subway station. How many square miles will the map take up? Okay, so most people, when you see the word reduced by a scale factor of 2/3, I've had a lot of students that are like, oh, I'm just going to divide by 2/3. Well, let's see what happens if you divide each of these side lengths by 2/3. I'm going to type in 21 divided by 2/3, and let's see what I get. 21 divided by 2/3 gives me 31.5. Now, our question or the instruction says that they are reducing the side length. So I want you to think, does 31.5 make sense up here? I did draw a bigger picture. I should have drawn a smaller picture. But reducing means to make something smaller. So if dividing didn't work, let's go ahead and try multiplying and see what that ends up doing for us. Because 31.5 is much larger than 21. That's not going to work. I'm going to make sure that I draw a smaller picture for you. Okay, so let's try this. 21 times 2/3, and let's see what we get. 21 times 2/3, and when you go to type 2/3 in your calculator, you just say 2ABC3. Looks like I got 14. So this side length right here is 14 centimeters. And let's go ahead and try the next one. You could do 15 times 2/3, or you could set up proportions to go ahead and find that side length. 15 times, and in my calculator, I'm just going to say 2ABC3. That's the same thing as 2/3. I got 10. So 10 centimeters right there. How many square inches will the map take up? That's the question it's asking us. Square inches, I know that anything squared is area. So I need to find the area of this rectangle now. And area is equal to base times height. Well, my base is 10 and my height is 14. Multiply them together and you get 140 centimeters squared. Nope, it's inches. I can't believe I did that. all these should have been inches. You guys should have told me. Just kidding, you probably already noticed. Because you're observant, unless you're sleeping right now. I don't know, because I'm not there. Okay, and I need to remember that I have to square my answer. Don't forget, square your answer and put the correct unit. It was in inches to begin with, so I needed to keep it in inches. All right, so now we're moving on to question number 17. The figures below are similar. What is the length of x? These are some of my favorite problems to do. I probably haven't told you guys that very much, but I love setting up proportions. Okay, so I know that 4 inches and 10 inches have to be equal to each other because they are proportional. Well, that being said, I also know 8 inches and x inches have to be equal to each other. Now that I have my proportions set up, I can just go ahead and solve. 10 times 8 is 80, divided by 4. 80 divided by 4, is that 20? Let's go ahead and type that in. So my answer is going to be 20 for x, 20 inches. And that's it. Question number 18 says the two triangles below are similar. What is the perimeter of triangle XYZ? Well, if our triangles are similar, that means we have to get our side lengths. And once again, you can set up proportions. I know these side lengths have to be equal to each other. 15 centimeters and 6 centimeters have to be equal. Well, that tells me 20 centimeters from the left triangle has to be equal to some value that I'm not sure of yet. Well, let's go ahead and try and find that. 6 times 20 divided by 15 will give us that answer. 6 times 20 is 120. Divided by 15 gives us 8. So I know my side length over here is going to be 8 centimeters. And let's go ahead and solve for the other side length. This is just one way that you can set these up. Let's see, I know that 15 centimeters and 6 centimeters have to be proportional. So that means 25 centimeters on my left triangle has to be equal to some value that I'm not sure of yet. So let's go ahead and figure out what that is. 6 times 25 divided by 15. Divided by 15, and I get, oh, I just got the worst answer. I got to plug that in again. 6 times 25 divided by, oh, I'm typing the wrong button, that's why. Divided by 15, and I got 10. Okay, so it looks like this side length over here is going to be 10 centimeters. Now the question that they're asking us, always go back to the question, they're asking us to find the perimeter of our new triangle. Perimeter is where you add everything up, so let's just do 10 plus 8. Well, that gives us 18. And then we need to add 6 to it, and I get 24 centimeters. And you do not have to square your answer because we're not looking for area, we're just looking for the perimeter. Okay, I think that is it. If you have questions, please make sure you ask me before your test. Thank you.